Hey everyone, this is Brooke from Bowl and Family Microgreens.
So let me give you a couple tricks here and show you a few of the tools that you'll need to grow microgreens out of your own house. So the first thing that I'm going to show you is a couple different trays that we use. So this is a standard 10-inch by 20-inch grow tray. It has we use two parts. We have one that has no holes in it, and then one that does have holes in it. And we do that so that once the seeds start to germinate, we can water from the bottom to prevent any mold or mildew on the microgreens themselves. We also have a standard 10 by 10 tray, same concept. We have one with holes, one without holes, and it's the exact same concept. Once the seeds have germinated, then we start watering from the bottom so that we can avoid any mildew or bacteria on the microgreens themselves. Everything that we grow, we try to grow naturally, so any fertilizer we use is completely natural. Any soil that we use is natural. We're not using any pesticides or any chemicals in our microgreens. So that's something that's very important to us. If we're going to consume it, we want it to be organic and natural. So there's a couple different types of trays you can use. There's also these thicker, still a standard 10 by 20 tray, but they are a little bit thicker. I prefer these just because they hold up a little bit better, but they are a little bit more costly. So if you're looking to do something just at home, you can pick up your standard 10 by 20 tray. I get these at the garden center for a couple bucks. And I've had these for about a year. They are starting to get, little holes in them and starting to break a little bit, but for a $3 investment, I think that's a pretty good return on my investment. So I've been happy with the black standard plastic 10 by 20 tray as well. So today what I'm going to grow for you or show you is a mix that I'm growing for a restaurant. The initial step is pretty simple. It starts with the soil. We're dealing with subarctic weather, which we haven't seen in Kansas in, I think, since like 1988. It was negative 17 degrees outside last night when we went to bed. So that has definitely caused some fun challenges. Luckily, I'm growing these out of my basement, so I don't have to worry so much about the cold. But it does prevent some challenges when I'm picking up soil that's been outside and is frozen, which was what happened to me today. So anyways, bear with me while I get the soil. I'm going to put the soil into my standard 10 by 20 tray. And I've got this backwards. I'm going to put it into the tray that has the holes so that it can drain into the tray that doesn't have the holes. Pretty simple. I use one of those tubs that you get to store, like you're gonna store stuff in. I use those to put my dirt in and mix them. The nice thing about microgreens is that the seeds themselves have all the nutrition that they need to get started, so we don't need to fertilize them when we're initially planting them. It's not until they start to grow that we add a little bit of organic or natural fertilizer to them. So if you see me off camera, I'm over here digging through some frozen soil. Anyways, I'm gonna get this filled completely up, and takes just a couple cups, but when it's frozen, it's a little bit harder to get. It's a little bit harder to get through, get past the frozen pieces. Anyways, once I get my soil, let me turn this down so you guys can see what I'm doing. By the way, I'm using my daughter's phone stand, so if my phone flops off or something, that's because I have no idea what I'm doing with technology, but she lent me her phone stand, so I thought it would be a good idea to use. But I'm going to turn it down so that you guys can see what I'm doing. Alright, so for the most part, you can see my 10 by 20 grow tray here. And I'm just going to smooth out the dirt until it's basically even with the top of the tray. Once I put my seed in it and add a little bit of water to it, it will sink down just a little bit. I'm not going to try to compact it down. I don't want it, I don't want that dirt real tight or compacted into the tray. I want it a little bit loose so that the seed has the ability for the roots to easily grow into the dirt. All right. So you can see that there. Our tray is full of dirt and it's basically even with the top of the grow tray. And so the next step is moving on to the seed. Today we are going to start a blend, a specialty blend that I make. It's a blend of different cruciferous vegetables like kale, radicchio, mizuna, cabbage, and just a different mixture of those types of vegetables. One of the questions I get asked a lot is, what's the difference between microgreens and just a regular, growing kale regularly? Well, microgreens, we're going to cover the tray with a lot of seed and it's going to germinate. And the whole tray is going to be full of these little, basically baby plants. The nice thing about that is that microgreens actually are more nutritious than their full-grown varieties, because all of the nutrition that comes from the seed or that comes from the plant is in that little baby plant. So microgreens actually end up being more nutritious than their full grown variety. So that's pretty nice. The other question I get asked is, what do you use microgreens for? And that's, pretty simple. You can use them in place of lettuce, like on a wrap or on a sandwich. You can add them to your salads, or you can use them to garnish your dishes, any dish with. They add great flavor profile, they add good texture, and then again, they add good nutrition. There's lots of varieties of microgreens, all that have different flavor profiles, from beets that have an earthy flavor profile to my cruciferous mix that has more of an earthy profile as well, to radish microgreens that have kind of that spicy radish flavor, but it's not overpowering like the full or the fully grown radish. There is sorrel, which has a real lemony flavor. So lots of different varieties. There's basil that has a mild basil flavor, and I could go on and on, but I won't bore you with that. So the next step that we're gonna do is weigh out how much seed we need for this 10 by 20 tray. And so how I do it is I get my measuring cup, and see if I can get you guys on my camera here, if I can show you. Don't mind the boxes in the back. Those are my clean boxes that I use to recycle my dirt once I've harvested my microgreens. Okay, so let's see if I can get the scale in here. Like I said, I'm not the best with technology. That's my I told you it was going to happen. The phone was going to come right out of the case, and that it did. So bear with me for just a second here. Let's get hooked back up here. All right, I think we're good to go. I'm going to actually move this tray, and I'm going to bring my scale out. That way I can tip it down and show you guys. All right, so this is just a standard kitchen tray. I'm gonna turn it on. I can't see what it says upside down, but I'm hoping that you can. So I have it on grams. That's how I measure my microgreen seeds. I'm gonna add my little measuring cup on here, and I'm gonna tar it out so that it's back to 0. And then I add about 16 grams of my cruciferous microgreen mix. You know, on something like radish where the seeds are a little bit bigger, I might add 25 grams. Just depends on what kind of seed I'm working with. But for this mixture, I'm gonna add about 15 grams of seed. So it's pretty simple. I'll dump them in here and weigh it out. I'm actually a little bit over, so doesn't take much to get to 15 grams when you're dealing with really tiny seeds. Okay, so we're at 15 grams of my cruciferous specialty blend microgreen mix, and now we're going to sow them into our standard 10 by 20 grow tray. All right, let's see if I can do this without knocking the phone over again. All right, so one thing to keep in mind when you are working with any kind of vegetables or any type of food product is to make sure you wash your hands. I've washed my hands plenty before I came on here, and I've had my gloves on. It's a lot harder to sow microgreen seeds with gloves on than it is without gloves on. So like I said, I washed my hands right before we started, so that I know that I'm not cross-contaminating any bacteria or any germs from my hands to the seeds that could potentially grow into the microgreens. So here we have our tray, and I'm gonna kind of start from this side and see if I can't just show you how I sew my tray. Now, go back a little bit. All right, so I take my seed and I just get a little bit in my hand at a time, and I'm literally just gonna broadcast this across the tray. And then I'm gonna get a little bit more, and I'm gonna keep broadcasting the seed across the tray until I feel like the tray has a nice amount of seed spread throughout the entire tray. You know, seeds don't have 100% germination ratio. Otherwise, if they did, we probably wouldn't need to use quite as much. But since we know that they have about a 95% for this particular variety, we compensate for that by adding a little extra seed into our mixture. All right. So now that that is broadcasted onto our tray, the next step is pretty simple. We got to water it, right? Can't grow anything without water. Whoops. Kicked the table and I almost knocked everything over. I was lucky enough to have a husband that made a sink and a faucet for me to make it super easy so that I could water my microgreens without having to try to use a spray bottle or something crazy like that, because my carpal tunnel was not appreciating me when I was doing that. But so I have just a standard garden hose here. This is well, I shouldn't say standard. This actually is a garden hose that's made to go up to like 150 degrees Fahrenheit. And the reason for that is because in between usage of the trays, I like to wash them and make sure that there's no bacteria in the tray before I reuse it. And so I have a nice big deep sink that I wash them in, and that allows me to use hot water or cold water, because trust me, I've busted a few hoses using hot water trying to wash my microgreen trays. So tip, if you're gonna wash your microgreen trays with the hose, make sure you get one that can withstand hot water. So when you're watering your microgreens, you don't want to flood them by any means. You want to make sure that they have a fine mist, the dirt gets wet and the seed gets wet, but you don't want to overwater them and then cause them to rot out or have get some kind of fungus or something like that. So I turn my setting to mist, and then I can get you guys a good shot here. You can kind of see the tray here. And then I just lightly mist my tray. The big thing is you don't want any puddles or pools of water standing in your tray. So that nice gentle mist will work for tonight. And then I'm going to cover my tray. This is something that's very important. Seeds like to grow towards where light's at. And so if I leave the trays uncovered, they're going to grow towards the grow lights that are, or just even the lights that are up above in this room. They're going to try to grow towards them, and we want to encourage their roots to grow down into the soil so that they have a sturdier root structure. So I put a tray over this, and I'm going to add a weight to it. I'm going to put another tray of microgreens that's currently in the blackout phase on top of this with some weight. And in 2 days, we'll start to see them germinate. Probably at 4 days, I'll remove the cover, and then they will grow into some beautiful microgreens. And let me just show you what they should look like when we are all done. All right. So here is a tray I started last week. As you can see, hopefully, these are beautiful, beautiful microgreens. If you look at the stem colors, there's a lot of white. It's kind of hard to see down here because I do use pink lights, but there's purple stems. There's some purple stems there. There's white stems. There's just a whole variety of different stem. Oops, you guys can't see that, sorry. There's a whole variety of different stem colors. And that's what we're looking for. So in a couple days, like I said, about 4 days, I'll take those microgreens that we just sowed, and I will put them under the grow lights. And then in about 10 days, we should have microgreens that are ready to be harvested and ready to be eaten. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial on how to start your own microgreens at home. I'm going to do another one on if you don't want to buy, a 10 by 20 tray. You don't need that many microgreens. I'm going to do a test run on how to grow microgreens in a like a little, those fry containers that you get in a brown fry container, in a container like that. So check back for that tutorial shortly. I hope you guys all have a fantastic evening. Talk to you soon. Bye. Oh, by the way, if you like this video, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and like our page so that you can get our updates when we post them. Have a great night.